All right, everyone, it's time for the big news of the day, which is Jeff Sessions being implicated by the Russian envoy there as having discussed a campaign, the Trump campaign, with him some time ago, I believe back in April and May. And so everyone's up in arms like Sessions must be fired. I agree, actually. I would love to see Sessions fired, and I think I know what's going on here. Does anybody else find it slightly odd that this happens the day after Trump and Sessions make that uncomfy appearance? And Sessions says, no, I'm not resigning. And Trump says, well, I regret installing him as Attorney General. I kind of regret it because of this. And he uses the probe as an excuse. Oh, he shouldn't have recused himself. But I think it's more he's embarrassed by Jeff Sessions because Sessions, unbeknownst to him, was a drug warrior and in favor of like the civil asset forfeiture stuff. I don't think that's Trump. I think that's Sessions shooting at the hip, and Trump is looking for an excuse to get rid of him. I think that this Russian envoy is speaking up specifically because of that. I think that the two things are linked. Now, in what way they're linked, I suppose your theory behind that depends on whether you think Trump is a Russian asset or not. If you do, probably what you're thinking is, aha, this is either evidence that everyone around Trump is colluding with Russia, or this is evidence that Trump is pulling a string with this envoy to get rid of Sessions because he fucking hates him and he has a decent relationship with Putin. It's like the extra meeting that Trump had with Putin with just the interpreter. And everyone said, oh, this is Nixonian, this is like Watergate all over it. What's in his job? Is it not in the president's job description to talk to foreign leaders? What difference does it really make if it's just an interpreter there or if there are a bunch of other people there? Why does it explicitly matter unless you assume that Trump is like, oh yeah, here's some state secrets you can take back to the Kremlin to analyze or something. You have to assume that there's wrongdoing to really care about that. If Obama had a private, undisclosed meeting just with an interpreter with Vladimir Putin, would anybody be worried? No, nobody would have cared at the time. Certainly not the people harping on this issue, but that's because there was never the assumption that he was a Russian asset. Then Kim.com comes out and says, oh, CrowdStrike, that sort of DNC op group, is actually Guccifer, and had these leaks had nothing to do with Russia. They were like from within the Democratic Party or some bullshit like that. And I kind of believe him. I'm not sure that Kim.com is the most reliable source of information in the world. Because he's come up short several times. But on the Guccifer issue, he seems to be probably telling the truth. And all this fusion GPS nonsense and everything else that's gone on. I think the real story is that the DNC is embroiled in about a dozen different leaks and scandals. Not that Trump is working hand in hand with Russian espionage agents. But I think my own feeling is probably Trump is looking for a reason to get rid of Sessions, and that this envoy is essentially being helpful. Another possibility. What would Trump do if he knows that the media is going to headhunt after him? Would he really care if other people around him are implicated in Russian connections, as long as he knows that he himself is not able to be implicated because he's not working with them? What if it's a deep state op? Have you considered the possibility that Trump is an intelligence asset and that the U.S. intelligence community is trying to weed out Russians from the government, certain people who are connected with Russia from the government, by getting Trump to get in and be chummy with them by pretending to be dumb? You know, Trump, you're a good actor. Run for president. Get it. We'll ensure that that happens. We need to purge a bunch of Russians from the higher levels of government, people that are feeding info to the Kremlin, because we know that there are moles and spies at the highest levels. There have to be because of, the info that they've obtained that we know that they've obtained. So you get in there. You know all these politicians. You know kind of who's corrupt. Get info on them, and then we'll expose them one by one. By the way, don't worry about getting impeached or anything, because obviously you're working for us, not for the Russians. Has anyone thought of this possibility? That Trump is purging the government of foreign assets or something along those lines? Weirder things have happened. I'm not speculating that that's the case. I'm putting that forward as an interesting alternative to the idea that Trump is working with Russia. Because so far we have situations where everyone around Trump seems to be connected with Russia. His own son appears to have talked with him, although that would be part of the op. It wouldn't touch his family. Sessions and Flynn and all these others And yet, not once in months and months of investigation and leaks have we gotten a single shred of evidence that Trump ever did anything wrong with regards to Russia. We have the Russian envoy saying Sessions discussed things inappropriately with him. You know, in the wake of Trump saying he regrets appointing him AG in the first place. How can he continue on as AG if the President of the United States that appointed him regrets the appointment? How can he continue on in that capacity? He needs to resign. If he doesn't resign, they need to get rid of him as quickly as possible. Sessions isn't even a good AG. He's pissing off a bunch of Republicans too. Not just the never Trumpers. He's pissed off Trump too. He certainly pisses me off with the drug war bullshit that's not going to work, spends a lot of money on nothing. How is he going to get anyone to work with him? He doesn't have any friends. It doesn't make any sense. Eric Holder comes out and rakes him over the coals over civil asset forfeiture. Now that's half fake news. It's like half true news because he's really talking about cartel members and stuff like that. But it's not a good look. Even bringing it up in a positive light doesn't make sense. You should be scaling it back further, in all honesty anyway. It shouldn't even be a thing that the government uses. Unless it's going to go into a collective pot to reduce the fees and taxes associated with policing, in which case it's okay if you hold off on the drug war side and you're not using civil asset forfeiture on people who are, you know, petty larceny or something. It's like right now, let's say you get a bunch of money on you because, you know, you're going to buy a car in cash or something. Or whatever under the sun. And some cop just randomly profiles you, stops you, says, oh, you got a lot of money on you, I'm seizing this. So there's no legal recourse in some states for that situation. Some states have basically banned the practice, and I applaud them. Others have severely restricted it. That's good. In some states, it's still in full force. Like the cop can basically steal your wallet, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's a legalized theft in those states. And rather than point that out, and say, yeah, this lower-end civil asset forfeiture is a problem. Jeff Sessions applauds the overall idea and wants to expand it on the upper level without doing anything to address the 99% of the time it probably has nothing to do with actual criminality. Like, someone has $100 on them, gets stopped for having a gram of weed. Does that mean that that's weed money? No, it doesn't, quite clearly. And Sessions apparently thinks that it does, or something like that. And then we have this weird situation where the day after he's sparring with the president that appointed him, we have this story. This has Trump written all over it. I think Trump is involved with this story coming out in some way. I have to assume he's involved. The other possibility people haven't mentioned, I haven't seen this posted about anywhere, like even among the alt media. What if this is the idea of the Russians' idea of a funny joke, just to screw with Trump? Like they're trolling him and they're trolling the United States to say, as envoy said before, no, there was no inappropriate commentary in the Sessions meeting with him. They just talked about mundane things. But we're going to say, haha, this is going to be funny. Oh, listen to this one. The KGB would be proud. We're going to say that he discussed the campaign just to stir the pot over there in the United States. Because Putin would love the idea of Trump being sort of disarmed and ineffectual and incapable of working with Congress because of the Russian bullshit. This actually benefits the Russians in a way because it diplomatically strangulates the United States and makes the president, the primary diplomat of the country and the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, look weak. It keeps people from working with him. It keeps his approval low, which keeps people demoralized, both his fans and his adversaries that can't impeach him, and it plays to Russia's benefit. It lets him conduct diplomacy more easily. Because there aren't as many people that can stand in their way. But nobody wants to talk about the possibility that it's a bunch of Dems and never-Trumpers and like establishmentarians that have been working with the Russians and Trump's trying to purge them from out of the government. Nobody wants to talk about that possibility. What if Trump is actually like the savior of the republic, basically? And all this stuff is really a smokescreen and he's trying one by one to get rid of these people. Like Jeff Sessions was already in government. What if Trump knew he was corrupt, so he's like, oh, I need him close to me so I can get rid of him by playing this stupid game that the media plays and my adversaries of I must be a Russian agent. Well, I'll give him something to think about because if people speculate that Trump is working with Russia and it comes out that the envoy was talking to Sessions, Doesn't that immediately become a lightning rod for front page news? Isn't it the best way to purge Sessions from his position altogether? Not just as the AG, but also in Congress. It gets rid of him. It gets rid of somebody who maybe is dishonest. Maybe he's corrupt and Trump set him up. Now go talk to that envoy over there, Jeff. And then he whispers to the envoy, okay, you know what to do. Maybe the envoy is a U.S. asset. Have you ever thought of this is some spy versus spy stuff. Have you thought of the possibility that this envoy is working for the U.S. and doesn't have any Russian loyalty at all? Like it just happens to be in the Kremlin. Like it's one of our agents operating in Russia. Maybe Putin should think about that. Maybe he's the one being played. That'd be funny. It's not beyond the realm of possibility. Do we not have intel agencies working with like a fucking 100 other intel agencies in the world? You'd think that we would know what's going on. If somebody noble and benevolent knows what's going on, maybe they've finally decided to take steps to weed out all the traitors and infiltrators. Maybe that's what's happening. There are all sorts of possibilities. It goes way beyond, oh, Trump is a Russian asset, so he surrounds himself with people who say inappropriate things to the Russian envoy. I think somebody like Trump, with his specific set of talents, is not given over to making such elementary mistakes. I don't think so. He has to be a decent judge of character to be able to delineate power to other people, to manage business. He does that for 40 friggin' years. And suddenly, because he becomes the president, he's no longer capable of exercising that skill. Like everything that he knows goes out the window because he happens to be the president. I'm not so sure that that's logical. I think that he's still very much in command of the situation. Whether or not he's the only one calling the shots remains to be seen. You could also think, well, maybe Trump is doing this, but he's corrupt. He's purging good people from, like, government positions. Okay, you name that as a possibility. Based on my reading of him, based on my estimation of who Donald Trump is, I think that he's the good guy in the situation. And I think it goes deeper than most. I don't think we'll ever be able to see how deep it goes, because it probably involves top secret sort of maneuvering. It's probably a U.S. op to purge foreign elements from the government, essentially. I believe that that's possibly what's happening. It explains everything. It explains how surreal the election was. It explains the DNC's actions. It explains everything. What if it's a bipartisan op to purge foreign elements from the government? You know, working with the CIA or something. Just think about that for a while. That's about all. Peace out.